a number of things that I want to go through, but consider this session a game time session, and we're reviewing the broad subjects of health, wealth, and relationships, hyper focused on success and happiness. Those parts, the parts that people often forget about. Yesterday I did a live session and I was talking about basically how do you detect fake love from a woman, and also educating women on how do you show love to a man. And I was thinking it's actually quite comical. There's a lot of things in life that are ironic. For example, in the manosphere or on the int, a lot of the topics men look at, it's all about how do I get laid, or maybe in some cases how do I get paid, but they're talking about sleeping with the woman, how do I influence her, how do I do all these things. But very rarely do you hear your pickup artists or your dating coaches talk about love. And this is comical and ironic because the truth is both the male and the female, what do they want? They want love. And a lot of males are lying to themselves as though they don't want love. They're ignoring that part of themselves. And I think pill raging, and in fact the discovery of the red pill comes from a lot of people experiencing unfortunate situations, whether it's infidelity or a female disappointing you, or her just not being who you thought she was or expected her to be. I remember when I was in elementary school, my first crush, and you can read about this in my book The Black Box, which you can get on Amazon. My first crush was on this girl named Elise Woodard, this little mixed chick, good looking girl. I think in like the 3rd or 4th grade. And I was interested in the girl, and eventually, and she was interested in me. And when we went to different middle/high schools, we were split apart. And later on, I saw her at a party. I was at my homie's party, and she live froze indeed. Dead zone. Let me know we're back Gucci, and I'll carry on. And also let me know where I left off in the story so you can get the whole thing. Beautiful land we got here. I'm going to finish this first story fairly quickly because I want to get onto something that's more interesting to me, and I want to put something on your mind, gentlemen. The fact that I saw Shorty at a party, and the homie told me that she's a cold slower, which was true. In fact, I heard that from a number of other sources later in life. It was quite a pity. This is the kind of thing that when you idealize someone, which is often what we do as males and females, you idealize the person that you're interested in, when in reality you're just lustful. You're being led by your carnal desire, and that person probably does not have a significant number of great characteristics, and certainly they are not the combination of good characteristics that you have fabricated into a single personality that is a perfect match for you. So in our disappointment, we start to, rage against the reality of the world. And this is where a lot of men and women find themselves, and they give up on love. Not that I necessarily believe in the concept, but they give up on the pursuit of a proper romantic, monogamous relationship that can go over a lifetime. And that, I think, is a wrong move. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, per usual, you can send them in. Of course, you can do that via Super Chat or Cash App or PayPal. And most importantly, if you're a member in our the Q&A voice group, and you can actually ask your question while I'm speaking. You can just basically interrupt me with the question. I'll be happy to answer it. I do have my Discord up right now, and it appears to be functioning. I also want to remind you guys about who you are. Now that's deep. They're like, Quet, what are you talking about? We've never met. Yeah, I know. The best way to figure out who someone is not by what they say. People have a lot of things to say about themselves. They often speak of themselves quite favorably. I often see super chats or Cash App, PayPal guy says, hey, Marquett, I'm really tall and handsome and good looking, and so on and so forth. It's really not always upon us to say that. Your results in life have to speak to that, or the persons around you. More difficult to discern than those things which are physical are our personality traits, who we really are. And I always keep an ear out when I'm hearing those around me who should know me speak about how they perceive me, for it educates me on who I am today and who I might need to evolve to tomorrow. For example, my employees, my assistant, namely, they spend a lot of time around me under a number of different circumstances and modalities, personal, and so they've observed me in a number of situations, and they can give me accurate feedback on who I have been and who I am. And recently I was in a situation, and I heard my assistant say something to me. There are a couple situations, and I really wanted to listen, and I had to kind of interrogate her perspective because I wanted to learn about myself. First scenario, we were at the gun store because I was, rearranging some of my properties and assets, and certain properties and assets I like to have a firearm nearby, so I don't have to keep moved up. They're all within 15 minutes of where we're standing right now. You do not have to buy this gun because I know this is not the exact type you wanted. I got 3 of them lined up right now. I got them. I got the directions ready to go. I just want to remind you of that. And she kept repeating that, and I was like, no, it's all good. She was like, no, it's not all good. I want to keep reminding you of this. I was like, why? She was like, you know how you are. I was like, no, sadly, I don't know how I am. She says, when you're locked in and you need something, or you confirm that we're back cracking, but let me know I think we get service the whole way through. You would think. Well, when you guys confirm that we're back on, let me know. Elias writes, could you share some advice on moving out of state? How much money would you set aside beforehand, and how to make the process as smooth as possible? Yeah, sure. Moving out of state doesn't matter if you're moving out of state or if you're moving to a different city in terms of the amount of money to set aside, because generally speaking, the amount of money is going to be the same unless you're factoring in transport costs. This is going to vary with your lifestyle, right? Like, for example, in my case, if I was moving out of state and I didn't intend to maintain my residence in the old state, well, hell, I got to ship 4 cars. I got to transport, several properties worth of goods. I'm going to need a 16-wheeler by myself. It's going to be expensive. So you want to be able to estimate those transport costs. And the biggest piece is the timing of it. If I'm moving to a new city or state for the purpose of a job, employment, in that case, what I want to do is make sure that I arrive well in advance of the commencement of the first day of work so that I can be prepared and start to reestablish my basic routine. Is right up there with public speaking and death of a loved one in terms of major stressors in life. So as a result, you want to prepare accordingly. And that is not only on the financial side, but also the psychological side, reestablishing your friendship network, starting to build on that, and reestablishing your routine base. So if you go to a boxing gym every day in your current city, you need to find a boxing gym proximate to your new address. Boxing gym, yoga studio, running track, all of these things, doctor, dentist, all of these things I would make note of, set appointments, and get in there ASAP. And then if you're moving out of state, depending on the nature of your business and the nature of your property, you're going to have to re-register certain things. Like, for example, if you're going to be in that new state for a while, you're going to have to re-register your firearms. That's a common thing. You might have to change your health insurance carrier because some health insurance is only state-based. So those are the things that I would consider. But at the end of the day, if you're making a move to upgrade in life, do not delay. Do not delay. And as best you can, I would look at your existing network and figure out who knows someone in the city and state that you're moving to. That's going to be immensely helpful, as the Master Sun Tzu points out that we must avail ourselves to local guides. Shout out Time Technically. Timmy writes, peace in the saints, tuition for the ism. Truly appreciate it. We're going to get back to this work. So with the story that I was telling, I'm in the gun store. I'm looking at I want to get some pocket pistols. And there's a certain look that I like to have on my firearms, right? So for example, you can get firearms in white coloration, camouflage coloration, pink, green, all these random colors. Now the thing is, when you're dealing with pocket pistols, these are very small firearms that are not imposing because of their size. They're small. And since they might look like a toy. Hence, if I buy a pocket pistol, I always want it to be black on black, so it looks like a gun, or I want it to be steel, so it looks like a gun. Any other coloration, when you pull it out, it's not gonna have the effect that you want, because generally speaking, whereas self-defense is concerned, or escalating conflict is concerned, when you pull out the clapper, mostly you don't want to have to clap the person. So you're either pulling it out if you're in a very public setting and you're pulling it out to de-escalate the person who's holding a machete, or de-escalate the 5 guys that are trying to jump you in public. So you pull it out and let them know, hey, I'll bust it if I need to, please step back. And you want them to recognize what it is. Or if you're in private, you hear me, and there's no witnesses around, and you feel like that person needs a one-way ticket to kingdom come, then doesn't matter what it looks like, bust it off. But more than likely, you're going to be in public, and you're going to be around a number of witnesses, and you're just going to want to de-escalate the situation so that you can exit safely. You and your loved ones, or your family, and your assets are protected. So that in the case, I wanted a pocket pistol that was steel or black. And so my assistant said, all right, let's get out of here. They don't have that. We got to go. So she basically hurried me out of there. And I asked her, I said, do you think I'm impulsive? She says, generally, no, but you don't like shopping. You hate shopping. So if it's a matter of going to buy something, you are already assuming that whatever is on the market for everyday people is not good quality or not designed well enough. So you try to rush the process. And she said, you shouldn't rush this process because I know what your thinking is behind your choice, and you should stick with that. I was like, all right, cool. So I learned one thing about myself. I can be impatient and hurry certain processes that need not be hurried, which is why I have my assistant there helping me with that instinct to counter it, to balance it. Some things about yourself you cannot change, no matter how hard you try. Or if you do change it, it changes minimally. That is why the greatest of qualities is for you to be a keen listener, so that you might learn from those around you. Did you know that you can learn from people who are not as sharp as you are, not as smart, not as accomplished, not as wise, not as successful? Yeah, you can learn from everyone. Sometimes you're learning what not to do. Sometimes you're learning what to do. Other times you're getting feedback on how you're behaving, thinking, and speaking, which is critical. So that was one of the major lessons I learned about myself from someone else, but I had to interrogate their opinion and really ask them to give me that knowledge. I had to demand that. Second piece of information I learned about myself, and this is really important because this is, I think, the primary trait that has led me to great success, and I want you to incorporate this into your way of being. For me, this is inherent and natural. This is not going anywhere. This is my actual true personality. But with many things, you can develop skills, you can groom certain traits in yourself, and this one I think is very much so worth grooming in yourself. Shout out to Alejandro supporting the work as well. So here's the second piece. I had an asset on the East Coast. You guys might in the East Coast in various places, namely Philadelphia, Baltimore, then various places in rural Pennsylvania. I have a number of assets on the East Coast. I needed to have an asset of mine shipped from the East Coast to the West Coast because I wanted to utilize it. And I hired some shipping companies, which the shipping business is a bit of a dirty business. Boxing and shipping, these are dirty businesses. You could ask about that later if you're interested. But anyways, these are dirty businesses. So I call up the shipping company. What usually happens is they'll put out, you'll talk to a broker, they'll put out a number of bids, and then a particular trucker or shipper will pick up the bid and they'll ship the product or the asset or whatever it is. And so I had this asset, I wanted it shipped in a certain specific way. and I wanted it done quickly. And so I'm talking to the broker, and they say, well, when do you need this done? I say, I need it done yesterday. They say, oh, I understand. They say, okay, well, here's the prices for doing it within a reasonable amount of time. Here's the prices to do it urgently. I said, okay, great. What's the price to do it tomorrow? They're like, oh, well, the price is this. It's going to be really high. I was like, that's fine. Do it tomorrow. Can you get that done? They're like, yeah, we can get it done. I was like, fantastic. Send me a contract. I'll sign it and send me the payment link. They send all that. I sign the contract. I execute the payment. Next day comes. They call me like, oh, hey, actually, we can't get this shipped out today. I was like, oh. I was disappointed, and it's ironic because I was just looking through my journal. I keep a regular journal, of course. I was just looking through my journal yesterday, the day before I did this deal, and a sentence that I had rewritten many times is, how do you structure a deal so that the other person doesn't cheat, lie, or not deliver? How do you structure a deal so the other person does not cheat, lie, or under-deliver? As a businessman, you need to be thinking about this all the time. So anyways, I was like, okay, whatever. When can you get it shipped out? At this point, it was a Friday. And then they say, we can get it shipped out on Monday, guaranteed. Okay, fantastic. So then here comes Monday, and me, I by nature am not a micromanager. I'm not concerned with those kinds of details. I like to hire competent people and let them work. However, this is a company that I hired, and I don't know if their people are competent. So come Monday, I reach out. I said, hey, how's it going? They say, oh, it's going swimmingly. We're about to go pick this thing up in an hour. We'll get it shipped to you. It will arrive in 5 days, guaranteed. Fantastic. I check in with the person who's the steward of my asset. I said, hey, have they contacted you? Are they going to come? He said, yeah, they've contacted me. I'm waiting. Fantastic. He reaches back out to me and says, Marquett, you're not going to like this. They're not here. The time's elapsed. I reached out to them, and they're having X, Y, and Z problems. I say, okay, you're right. I'm not going to like that. So I reach back out to the shipper, and I fire them, and have a couple other words with them, unnecessary words. And then I have my assistant try to find another shipper very quickly and get the job done. Price is no object. My assistant is going through, having all these conversations, trying to get this done. And I'm listening to a number of the conversations because she's on speakerphone, right? And as she's doing this, I realize that we're dealing with a lot of persons who cannot make reliable promises, and I'm getting fed up, right? I have a number of things on my schedule, but I had a couple of days that I can move things around. So I said to her, I said, you know what? You trust this guy you're just talking to? She was like, no, he doesn't sound like he's sure. I was like, that's right. I'm noticing that's consistent in this industry. I tell you what, book me a flight tonight. I'm going to fly over there. I want to take one business meeting in the morning. I'm going to collect my asset, and then I'm going to come back. I'll come back. And she's like, are you sure? I was like, I'm absolutely sure. Get it done quickly. So she does that, gets it done quickly. And it was pretty much the die was cast, and she didn't try to question what I was doing or why I was doing it. She just cleared out my appointments for the next couple of days. And then we had a conversation, because I often want to hear the opinion of intelligent people when I have time to get their opinion, meaning some decisions have to be made quickly. You got to stick with the decision. You don't have time to question anything. And what you'll find often in leadership is that you can make the wrong choice into the right decision. Listen, you can make the wrong choice into the right decision. For example, say you're a two-sport athlete and you have an option of a basketball scholarship or a football scholarship. And you take the basketball scholarship, but the football scholarship would have paid more of your college costs. Well, you took the basketball scholarship. Maybe you perform really well, and then you go talk to the coach and you renegotiate and get them to expand the scholarship, or you transfer schools that'll give you a better scholarship based on your demonstrated talents and abilities, based on your stats. You can make the wrong choice into a good decision. Sometimes you have the chance to change your decision, and when you have that chance, if you want to hear someone's opinion, ask. People always want to give their opinion, and if you have intelligent people around you, you'd be wise to do so. So anyways, I say, hey, what do you think about this move I'm making? She says, well, number one, Anytime you show up in person, or anytime someone shows up in person, face to face to talk business, it's going to have a greater impact. I was like, that's true. She says, and when you show up in business, it's like a 5 times multiplier because you can be a mean person and they understand that you're very face to face. I was like, that's a good point. And she was like, and also the last, do I think it's a good use of your time to take your asset and bring it all the way across the country the long way? She was like, absolutely not. Will you have it any other way? No. She's like, there's no other way. She's like, you're asking me, but the decision's made. You're not going to change your mind. This is your personality. You don't want to wait. You're not going to wait. You don't wait for anything. So I'll book the trip. I was like, okay, that's a good point. Sometimes I just like to hear the truth out loud. And she's right. The die was cast. And what I want you guys to understand about that is urgency. If you've been following me for years, I'm always reiterating urgency. Urgency always shows me who's serious. Urgency shows me who's going to get the job done. Urgency shows me who's a real one. Urgency, urgency, urgency. And I always, when I'm being urgent, I'm looking around to see who else is urgent. When I ask someone to do something, I want them to do it quickly. Not to make me feel good, but hell, why? Is core to my personality. I'd rather run than walk in all cases. I'd rather do it fast than slow in all cases. And that is the number one thing that has made me successful. And a part of urgency is being quick to start, being brief on thought, quick to start, strong on action. Brief in thought, quick to start, strong on action. You know how much time people use torturing themselves in the mind, overthinking? It has been said you can have too much to drink. I like to remind that you can also have too much to think. What a tragedy. Now, this is a very feminine thing. And femininity is great as long as you're if you're not a woman, then femininity probably isn't so good. I just increased the AC because it's a little bit toasty. Do confirm that this is not destroying the audio quality. Let me see if I can go ahead and grab my AirPods, and that'll maybe improve what you're hearing from me. And if you're a member, you can join on to our voice call and share your question via voice at this time. Give me a second, I'm gonna pop these in for you. And I also want to speak. There's some things you have to accept about human life. If you guys can confirm that you can now hear me through the headphones, I would be thankful. Grace, that sound is good. Someone confirm that you can hear me through the headphones and or that sound is good. So I've driven across country 5 times minimum, maybe more, I can't remember, but at minimum 5 times. And what I notice when I'm driving across country is that I never make it through exclusively during the sunshine, during the daylight hours. That never happens. And then secondly, another thing that never happens is that I never make it through without rain. There's always rain. Now, I don't like driving in rain. Most people probably don't. I don't like driving around 16 wheelers. Right now, I'm by 4 16 wheelers. And when you mix rain and 16 wheelers and nighttime, it's fairly unpleasant. But one thing I know for sure, it says headphones and sound is good. Perfect. One thing I know for sure is that there will always be 16 wheelers, rain, and nighttime on that drive. There's also going to be sunshine, good weather, beautiful scenery, friendly people, and good music, which is to say, life is both of those things. If you get comfortable with the fact that all those things, if you get comfortable with the fact that all those elements, the entire spectrum of human life, good and bad, will always be there, you become a master of it. But here's the thing, the reason I'm good at it or I can deal with it is because I've done it so many times. Like most people haven't driven across the country 5 times. I think I've done it more, but 5 trips come to mind right now. So I know what to expect. And when you can expect, that is anticipate, then you can dominate, you see. You can design design around those challenges. Most people are living a life, they're not designing a life. Designing a life of your life, your affairs, your success. Most people are just going with the flow. No, I refuse. I'm trying to create the flow. You see, let's create the flow and then we can go with the flow. But no way shall I go with a flow that I don't like or that I didn't write. Huh? Come on now. Shout out to Gravity Films supporting the work. We'll come to that in a second. Major Minus Soul says, thank you for this. I have a very serious question. I'm on the Discord call when you are ready. I am indeed ready. Let me go ahead and pick this up. Now that I'm on headphones, I don't know if that's going to be audible to the YouTube audience, but I'm ready to go. So go ahead and talk to me. Let me turn you up a little bit. All right, go ahead. Oh, yeah, let me put you on speaker. I think maybe we're not on speaker. Talk to me.
All right, so I really feel like we could do a whole live on this, but let's do it here. I have a friend who's a deadbeat dad.
Dang. And everybody got a cousin or a friend that's a deadbeat dad. They asking for their cousin or their friend. But in your case, I know you're sincere because I've observed your work. I've observed you being there and being a great example. But on a serious note, we have an actual friend that's a deadbeat dad. All right, go ahead.
Yes, and it's not just a random friend, it's somebody who I consider a brother, somebody I grew up with, who I truly care about. The problem is, I should not know that he's a deadbeat dad. I say that because I only know because his baby mamas with an S, because there's 3 of them.
That's good. By the way, for the YouTube audience, please confirm that you can hear the saint right now. I got him on speaker. I'd love for you to be able to hear him in his words. So if anyone in the live chat can confirm that you can, in fact, hear this member speaking, go ahead, talk to us.
All right, so his baby mamas, for whatever reason, keep telling me about his BS.
Okay.
So the problem is, I know so much about him now that I have a hard time acting like I don't. He calls me, we have no personal issue, but he doesn't know what I know. So it's hard for me to be honest around him, and I don't know how to be like, yo, your baby mama's been telling me this, that, and the third, because I'm not a chatty patty. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the problem is, I know a lot of really effed up stuff that he's done and said towards his children, and I really don't want to associate with it. But I don't know how to tell him that without making it seem like I've crossed the line and spoken with his baby mom, things like that.
Number one, we all know that males are extremely sensitive about their women. Males and men, very sensitive about their women. Generally, I say keep your distance. That's usually the best case scenario. You hear me? I don't want to shake hands. I don't even really want to high five. You know, I'll acknowledge her if she's present, but low key, I really don't have anything to say. And that's usually the best way to keep it. So that's number one. Number two, in all things, we have to ask ourselves, what is our outcome? What's our desired outcome? So is your desired outcome to get a better uh, situation for the baby mother? Pick one of them. Or is your outcome to get a better situation for the child, meaning better treatment for the child from the father? Or is your desired outcome to stay out of it entirely? And those are just options. There are probably many more, but what is your desired outcome? First, I say your, even though you're not actually in the situation, but thinking of yourself first as a priority. 3 Sins Bible, be yourself, be good to yourself, be good to good people. So first off, what's best for you?
I think personally what's best for me is if my friend was a good dad. Honestly, I've known a lot about him for a long time, and I've tried to just subtly be an example, be the right person, and hope that it rubs off a little bit, and to a degree it has. But at this point, if that's not possible, where he could be a good person, really, then I would love to have him in my life. My daughter calls him uncle, you know what I mean? Like, I would love to have him in my life. But if he's gonna keep doing that, then I feel like I have to disassociate. And I'm straddling that fence. Do I pretend like I don't know stuff so I can keep my friend or my brother in my life, or do I annex him overboard?
See, that's a really good question. So this is how I would take it. Number one, if these women came to me giving me these stories that are not my business, I would have heard them out the first time and then said, "Hey, I appreciate you having enough trust and respect to reach out to me. If I can help, if this is like a very dangerous situation to any of the persons involved, yes, I can take some action as a man. However, if this no one incarcerated or causing significant bodily harm or fatality, then this is not something that will cause me to get involved in another man's affairs. I appreciate you giving this information to me, but I will have to politely ask you to find another source. If you need counsel, then you should probably get a counselor or get counsel from your father. If you need resources or something like that, that's different. I might be able to support in that way, but we'd want to get that cleared with him and bring him in on this conversation because it's not.
They just open my app and here I go with the whole diatribe, the screenshots and all this BS. I'm like, why are you telling me? And half of them are like, well, you inspired him and da 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 da.
Right.
I'm like, people are listening, so what do you want me to do? So thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's gonna drag you. I mean, it's a compliment, but it's also there's two other pieces when women are bringing you into things that don't directly involve you. Number one, women will often bring together coalitions. Sometimes it's a coalition for evil. You feel me? Sometimes it's a coalition that's just going to drive gossip and create a greater, bigger conflict. Next thing you know, fighting and inter-male conflict is going to arise out of a woman's words. It started with a woman's words, ended with a man's fists. And they drum up drama in that way. Sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously. They might have wanted you to fight on their behalf. It was like, okay, now you got me fighting my friend, whether it's verbally, argumentatively, physically, or otherwise, or morally. You know, that could be one thing. And then on the other side of a woman bringing you in to something like that, now this might be something that drags you down. I'll give you an me that this was the case. But I had a friend we call Crazy Rob. I call Crazy Rob, not we actually. I was the only one calling him Crazy Rob, and he's an active gang member. Real only one that could get him to not tear somebody's head off. So she was like, "You're the only one he'll listen to. Like, I need you to get him to stop doing all this stuff he's doing. He's in and out of jail. Um, you know, something's got to change. You're the only one that can do something. I need you to talk to him. I need you to spend time with him. I need you to do X, Y, and Z." And that's my man. You feel me? That's my man. We grew up together. We've done dirt together. We've taken serious chances together. But the fact of the matter is, a tiger doesn't change his stripes. And that's how that young man got his relevance in the world. My relevance was from being a hustler. His relevance was from being a knockout artist and a gangster. So he's not about to give up his identity because his mom didn't like it. And he had already, by that time, done a lot of time behind the walls, and so the walls don't scare him. So I knew that in spending more time with him, I was gonna end up in more BS. And like I did end up getting stabbed up one time over a situation that he basically had. It was his situation. These essays end up catching me and stabbing me up over the situation. And so I realized that if I stay involved in this, even if I'm trying to help, I'm here in a helping capacity. You cannot walk through water and not get wet. Like as my grandma would say, you think fat meat ain't greasy. Nah, you're not gonna deal in things that are low and not get a bad outcome.
Thank you. I have one just last follow-up question. So would you tell him what you know? Maybe not in specifics, but would you tell him that, listen, I just want to talk to you about this, or if he has been reaching out to me? The reason why I ask is I wish I could talk to him about it. It's so close, and I feel like I could. But as you said, men are so defensive. mentioned, I really do feel like this might end up a fight between me and my best friend, and I really don't. And I really don't need that. You know, from a soul perspective, I really don't need that. But I feel as if it should be talked about. I feel like that's the only way forward is either to disassociate and actually talk about it. So would you?
Can do you dirty. So I was asking, okay, well, what are my feelings? Sometimes following your feelings is a good thing. Other times following your feelings is a dangerous thing. So I got a lot of homies I grew up with. They all have pierced ears. I don't have pierced ears. You think they didn't notice that? I got a lot of homies I grew up with, whether the truth, me telling them the truth isn't going to be any more impactful. I got to re explain that verbally. Nah, they know what's up. Some shit that his baby mom's already said to him. You about to reiterate some shit that he knows when he looks in the mirror. As a result, you might feel better, you might feel better because you get to express the self. And we all want to be self expressive. That's our human nature. But our greater nature says, okay, I might feel like expressing the self, but if my words will fall on deaf ears, let me keep my words to myself. They're better inside of me than out in the world. Better inside of me than out in the world.
Wow. Yeah, that's spot on. That's spot on. I was definitely in my head. I'm just worried about the fight thing because I know there's a side of him that he doesn't show me. He's one of those people where with women, apparently, I mean, I haven't seen it, but
Right.
that's the part where my trepidation, I have trepidation because I don't want to trigger that side of me, that side of him in front of me, because I know I'm not about to just sit back and let it be, and I don't want to fight my friend. So, but you're absolutely right. I'm going off of how I feel, and at the end of the day, I think I just need to leave this alone. I really do. I think I just need to leave it alone.
I trust that you have some goals written down somewhere, or at least in your head, and none of your goals involve, uh, being a free therapist for a grown man with baby mama drama. I'm guessing your goals might involve, like some real estate, maybe some fancy cars, maybe some big money, maybe growing your family, things like that. So, it's probably better to focus on those beautiful parts of life because the ugly part's going to show up.
So,
Peace to the saints. Is that Cap right there?
yes, sir. Good to hear from you.
Likewise. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Same.
Awesome. So my question, I was asking for a young man who's traveling often and in a stronger financial position. How would you organize and focus your romantic relationships with a specific end goal of having a good woman long term, but knowing that you're moving in a lot of different cities and places,
So,
specifically maybe in St. City?
right. I can dig it. When you're early in your career, you have to move around. Like sometimes you just like to do business to get the best deal, to let somebody know you're serious. You got to hop on a bird and show up. So this is typical for a young man, and when I say young, really that's like 30s and lower. That's what I mean when I say young. You still got energy and you're still hustling to establish yourself. And an important thing in all relationships is communication, and women really like to communicate. But to set reasonable standards is going to be your greatest advantage. So when I say reasonable standards, a reasonable standard may or may not be we have a communication once a day. That may or may not be a reasonable standard. I have women that don't expect to hear from me every day, and for them, that's reasonable because they have a strong understanding of what I have to get done in a day, but they also have a strong foundational understanding of how I feel about them and what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. Sometimes the girl's like, I want to hear from you every day, or I want to get a good night text every day. And some of those things you have to interrogate, like, why? Do you want to get a good night like phone call every day to make sure that I'm not in bed with another woman? Do you want to get like they do this.
Yes.
I mean, you might have a girl that never says I love you on the phone, but all of a sudden, when you're traveling, she feels the need to say I love you every time. And she says this because she misses you, but it's really to make sure that there's no other chick around there. And if there is, she hears that.
Right.
So you have to think twice and three times about much of what they do. But the fact is, number one, reasonable expectations for your current state of life, and then letting them know clearly my number one goal is to establish myself financially for all of us, for our family. If you're going to be in my family, that means you win when I win. But that's the number one goal. You and I, our enjoyment together, our romance, all that, that is a number two goal. But if you're really smart, you realize that if you help me with this number one goal, you're going to win on both goal one and two. But I cannot have you becoming an obstacle to this. So our reasonable expectations are I'm going to be traveling 30% of the month. I will not be here. During the time that I'm not here, I will exchange fill in the blank amount of communication via a blah, blah, blah means. If that's not able to happen, we're not going to get angry. We're going to make an effort at doing it. We're going to be honest and respectful when it didn't happen. If an apology is appropriate, we'll apologize, but more than likely, it's not needed. We're making a good effort in sincerity. When you can set that out straight and also not be afraid to lose her, you're going to be in a good position. Will you have arguments and disagreement? Absolutely, because women, they like emotional variation. Some people would call it drama. I call it emotional variation, meaning they like to feel sad sometimes because they enjoy the happiness more. They need to go down so that they can come up higher. That's how they are. I call it emotional variation because I expect them to swing through that cycle just like I expect capitalism to go through cycles of depression, boom, and bust. So I don't trip on it. And another thing you're gonna have to understand is how your female deals with conflict, disappointment, and that'll teach you a lot about her. And more importantly, how do you deal with her conflict and disappointment? How do you react to it, and how does it get managed? How do you patch things up? So if you can get those things under control, you'll be in good shape. What else you got for me?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I guess that makes a lot of sense to me. I just got to touch down on the next cities and ready to play again.
Yeah, run the play. And tell her this, though. This is a really good one. If you can set this ground rule, and I hope everyone's paying close attention, the men and the women, this is good for real long term relationships. In fact, all romantic involvement. Now, when you're in your real long term relationship and you tell her that you're actually serious. So, one great piece of advice I got from a religious gentleman who's still married to this day, been married a very long time. He said, my wife and I, we never, no matter how angry we get, never do we talk about getting a divorce. Never. It doesn't cross our mind. We refuse to think about it. We will never speak of it. And that's a rule that we've always had. We never even think of divorce. He says, many times I've contemplated murder, which is to say, um, look, before we break up, I'd rather kill her and she'd rather kill me, but we're not getting a divorce. It's not our way. So when you lay down that ground rule with her, you're about to add a lot of safety, which for women, the feeling of security and safety is paramount. And you're also about to ease your mind because you got a greater level of security because you know, like, hey, we might have an argument, but we'll always come back to the center. We might stop talking for 2 days because she's mad or I'm mad, but we'll always come back to the center. And we'll never insult each other with the extinction level insults of like, oh, I could get a better guy or I'm done with this relationship if X, Y, and Z. We will never threaten in that way. That removes a lot of the BS from the interaction and it actually makes the explosion a lot less big and it doesn't weigh on you as much because you're not worrying about the whole thing being gone. But here's the secret for you as a man: whatever explodes, blows up, goes away, leaves you, disappoints you, it's fine. Walk away from it and carry on. You heard me? You know, as a man, whatever it is, it could be your marriage, your kid, your mother, whatever dies, gives up on you, blah, 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 walk away from it, carry on. That's what it has to be. And you always got to keep that in your back pocket. Love your woman strongly, but if you got to walk away in an instance when it's appropriate.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Peace and safe.
Peace to the saints. You going in today. You going in. I've been trying to dehydrate so I don't have to pull over to use the restroom, but my dehydration efforts have been ineffective, unfortunately. I'm also asking myself, how am I going to get this workout in today? Questions. That's how you keep your mind focused in the right direction, asking the right questions of yourself. Let me see if we had some folks in by Cash App, PayPal, and all that stuff. See who's supporting the work. May I? Oh yeah. By the way, shout out to Mark Pando, producer extraordinaire. He been sending me some fire. You heard me. I hope I get enough beats together that we could just do a piece called the Pando Project. That'd be cold. Shout out to George, always coming in by Cash App, supporting the work. Shout out to Justino. He writes late tuition. Appreciate you. And I also acknowledge Justice, and he writes tuition for the sublime ism. Yes, indeed. The thing that I really come to appreciate about life is that I'll tell you one thing I appreciate and one thing that like is a challenge that we all have to accept. One thing that I appreciate that there's a lot of processes and frameworks that can be applied to different things, right? The framework of business can be applied, like how do you create a product, like the startup process to build a product based business, that can be applied to a lot of things. Moving to a different city, starting a new relationship, a successful relationship, that can be applied to a lot of things. So that's neat that you can reapply that same thinking and logic, and when you develop these mental tools, you can use them for a lifetime in a number of theaters. Conversely, one of the challenges of life is that you never know everything. You can never actually be a real know-it-all. No wise man is wise enough for everything. You must constantly be learning. Even if you're a software developer and you develop apps for the iPhone, if you were to take 3 years off, all of a sudden you are not an iPhone developer and you cannot develop apps for the iPhone. You have to continuously practice and learn. That is the challenge of human life. But if we are not to work, then what would we do? Even our leisure would become unpleasurable, not displeasurable, but unpleasurable if we had too much of it. Work is a necessary balance. The bitter balances the sweet. The bitter makes the sweet sweet. So that's one thing I've come to accept, and you always have to be able to tell yourself the right stories to get the best outcomes out of yourself. The human being is a deeply psychological animal. If you have Boss University, one of the things that means the most to me in Boss University, I'll tell you two things. One, what means the most to me in Boss University on a sentimental level, like meaning like I actually think it's going to help people's lives. And then the second thing, what is the most impactful? You might think those are the same, but they're different. The thing that means the most to me on a sentimental level with Boss University is that first section on self improvement when I talk about how to be happy. Yeah, how to be happy. Because most people never ask about happiness and they never ask about love. They don't ask me about happiness. They don't ask me about love. You know what they ask about? They ask about money because they think that's happiness. And then they ask about sex because they think that's love or the closest they can get. So that first section, couple lessons on self-improvement and happiness, those are the closest to my heart. I think those will benefit you the most. You get Boss University at marquettism.com if you don't have it. And if you do have it, you need to be reviewing it early and actually reviewing it often. The second part, what is most impactful? What's most impactful, and it's going to, and I really do mean it, say, you. And so I'm very pleased with that course because I feel like the course is very comprehensive. You have all of the major parts of the good life can be taught from that course. Hey, Saints, on the Discord audio call, you guys still able to hear me? Because obviously my YouTube stream goes in and out. I wanted to know if this is going in and out as well. I wanted to know if this is going in and out as well.
It does a little bit, but not as much as the YouTube one. It does a little bit, but not as much as the YouTube one, but it still does go in and out.
Ah, okay. I appreciate that. Well, that's good. I think perhaps the way we can do it next time is perhaps I'll just do the Discord and we'll powwow here, and then we can record it and perhaps share it with the members or YouTube, depending on the content of it.
Yeah, I think it might just be because the video, I mean, since you're doing YouTube, it's a video as well, so it's just more lag. I'm not sure if this is correct, though.
I think that hypothesis is probably correct. Certainly, there's the variable of the two different phones, but they're using the same data and the same carrier. One is a newer iPhone, one's an older one, but I think your thesis is correct. I think that is a good thesis. And one thing
I just wanted to support Boston University too. They haven't gotten it. It's like, why haven't you? Other than money problems, I get it.
Right.
But you're getting into small money problems, so.
Right. That's one of the paradoxes of life is that, you know, at some level you have to invest to make money, or simply put, spend money to make money. And I do want to do another live seminar at Boss University, just because, as I say, it benefits me to go through it. And just like Major Mind and Soul was on earlier, he knew all the answers. He knew all the right answers. Sometimes you either just need to hear it again, or hear it out loud, or hear someone else tell you, or just make you more certain and confident that the right answers are the right answers. And that's okay. And that's why it's important to be around good people. And sadly, if you don't spend enough time around good people getting reinforcement, you might pick up bad habits from bad people. And we have to be comfortable acknowledging that there is a such thing as bad people. Man, I observe them all the time. Every time I'm cursed to have to take a last minute flight and it's a commercial flight, I observe bad people all over the place. As soon as the flight lands and it's time to exit, you see people trying to rush through the aisle instead of waiting their turn. Like you're in numbered rows. It's never more obvious than when it's your turn. They're numbered rows. Yet everyone tries to rush forward. And that is the nature of man. And that's not a cultural thing for the most part. Every human being is inclined to do that. The only time that doesn't happen is when you've been cultured against that kind of behavior, which is to say there's one part to goodness that is inherent, and there's another part of goodness, good behavior, that is taught, trained, and a part of culture. But it's okay to say, there's some folks that are not the ones I want to be around, and you have to re-imbue yourself in good information, good knowledge. One thing that I want to share. I know people are at different levels in their journey of success or growth, and whether they want to grow in they're in high school, they want to grow in popularity, or they want to grow in their finances or their influence in their neighborhood, whatever you're a part of, whatever you're growing in. There's a maturation. There are levels to it, and not only will you be changing and evolving, the circum advantage is that as you become the new you, the better, new, improved version, you have different problems, new problems. And because those problems are new, you don't know how, because they can tell you what's next. And I want to speak on this based on a DM that I got from one of the saints. Not a member, but every now and then, if I have the time and I see I try to lend the time and help, especially if it's a young man. There are two situations. One, a young man had asked me, and I just want to share this for all of you out there. He had basically said, "Hey, Marquette, should I have this girl get the morning after pill? Because I had intercourse with her without a condom." I said, "Well, number one, generally speaking, you should be using condoms, especially if you're not dealing with a woman who is obedient to you. If you don't know her to be 100% obedient to you, you should be using condoms." More, and I notice I use the word obedient, which is a strong word. Furthermore, your question is, should you get the morning after pill? If that is ever a question, the answer is always yes. I mean, if you don't intend to have kids, the answer is always yes. And should you pay for, in the ideal world, you'd go 50-50. minimum 18 years, but more than, yeah, that's a great investment. I'd pay for you. That's how good of an investment it is. So definitely do that. And I'm not a pro abortion person, I'm a pro responsibility person. But I wanted to give that reminder to all of the young men and the mature men who are listening right now, because we all should be using condoms unless you are with a woman who is 100% obedient to you. And this is worth reminding you all of, because these are not common conversations. Use a condom, gentlemen. There's nothing to say, because as you get greater success, a part of success is more money, more accolades, more love, and also more hate, more jealousy. So, along with all of the good things that success provides, it also provides a balance to that. And it's not in direct proportions, right? If you get 100 people who love you, you're not going to get 100 people who hate you. That's not how that works. You might get 100 people who love you, and then you might get 8 people who hate you. Now, the challenge is that the wicked are very proactive persons, right? They stay active. But the fact is, it was not worth responding to, because that is what this stage of life is about. You know, if you're a nobody and someone's hating on you, yeah, maybe go punch them out. It's just one of them. But if you're successful, you have a million fans. You might have like 1,000 haters. You can't fight 1,000 people. It's just one of you. So you have to preserve your energy. And you find that initially, as you're becoming more well known, you might engage with haters. You might go back and forth with them. You might debate them. You might do all these kinds of things. But once you become more comfortable in your new position, you realize it's not a good use of time. And so I just want to share with you guys what's next for you as you grow in your success. Because, early on, I did every now and then reply, because I just couldn't comprehend the idea that a puny internet nerd would say something behind a keyboard that he wouldn't say to my face, because I'm not that kind of person. So it's just hard. And I've never experienced that. I've never once had a beef with a nerd in life. I've only had beef with actual gangsters, like real killers. And I've not had a lot of those. Maybe it was like 4 or 5 of those situations in my entire life, which is pretty good when you were born into a ghetto and you were very active. Like I wasn't sitting on the sidelines, I was off the porch. But even, the people around me, I remember a good friend of mine, he told me, he said, he was like, "Wait, bro, these are internet nerds, man. They're not like you. And, like, you don't have to show them what you're like. They'll never believe it, and they'll never understand, and they'll never accept it. And if they know it to be true, they're still going to lie about it." Which is to say, there's no good investment of time and energy trying to impress, persuade, or even hurt a hater. And I heard Goggins say something that's very true, and I think we all know this, which is that no one hates on someone who is in a worse position than they are. You only hate on the person that's in a better position. There's nothing wrong with being critical of people, or giving commentary, but to hate on someone, um, that's a different thing. And as males, as men, we can't allow something like that to penetrate our spirit. And what you really want to do is to create a trigger. And this is not only with haters, but this is also with other kinds of things that you might be confronted with in the environment. So, for example, there's this one young lady I was dealing with a long time ago. I created a trigger. I was dealing with her, but I didn't want to be dealing with her. And I can't go into a lot of details, but the P's understand. Sometimes, you got a chick that's not quite a bottom B, but you got to let her operate in the role, because it's the best move that you got at that moment. And so, anytime she would say something foolish or goofy or evil, I would always take that as a reminder to work on my business. So we could be in the middle of a conversation in a restaurant, and if she says something evil, goofy, or wicked, I would instantly go to my to-do list for my business and say, what is one thing I can do right now, or I can do a step. I can just do at least one step, focus on my business. And so I utilized her as a tool to refocus me on my business or my business goals. Every time she would say something foolish, goofy, evil, jealous, mean spirited, I would always like use that. Oh, hold on, let me check my to do list. And you got to do the same thing with haters. And really, your haters should be inspiring you to produce more. When someone hates on you, like, oh man, the haters are at work. I got to get to work because they need something to hate on. Without me, they can't do their job. You got to do your job and give them something to hate on. We all got to work. Losers need winners. A loser can't even successfully be a loser unless somebody's a winner. I got to win so that they can lose. You dig? We all got to do our work out here. And those are the triggers that you want to establish in your mind so that you're truly in control of your mind and destiny. Pause. I'll yield the floor right now if anyone had any questions, comments. And shout out to the Saints who have supported via Cash App. You are appreciated. I do see you.
Yeah, I have a question that's key to leveling up in life. And when that happens, you're also leveling up on problems. And facing those is a little bit extra. It's really exciting, but at times I just ask myself, like, do I really have it? Do I really got it? I think the root of it is, when times were good, I just thought money was abundant, there's infinite. And then, like, during challenging times, I just get into scarcity mode. And it's sometimes difficult to get out of that scarcity mode back to just money is abundant and, like, let's do it, like, let's act. Because when I'm thinking about scarcity, I don't implement, I don't strategize as much as I should.
That's a great point. Part of it is inexperience, meaning you haven't had your helmet slapped off enough. When you get your helmet slapped off enough times and you're like, okay, I know this is going to happen at some point. My helmet gets slapped off. I'm going to bend down, pick the goddamn thing back up, put it on, put my chin strap on, put my mouthpiece back in, and I'm going to go back to hitting. So part of it is just experience. You haven't had your helmet slapped off enough. The second thing that we have to uncover is fear. Like you're dealing with fear. That's what makes you irrational. The fear that the money that you made in the past you can't make again, the fear that markets won't recover, the fear that your competitors are going to outperform you in this slump. It's fear, fear, fear. But things always recover and there's always someone winning. And that's the bright side, which is to say, when it's snowing, there's some dumb idiot somewhere freezing to death in the snow. There's someone who's going to die because of the snow. And there's another guy that was like sitting around like, oh, great, it's snowing. I've been waiting on this. Let me pull these skis out. I'm ready. I want to have fun in this snow. So there's always someone winning. Even if you look at Yemen, and Yemen has been, I know this is a strange example, but if you look at Yemen, they've been at war for 9 years. This is the war no one talks about. So say you got a war going on for 9 years, and you're like, oh, it's so bad. Somebody winning? Oh, you better believe it. A 9-year war to be the guy selling weapons. 9 years of constant war? I'd love to be the guy selling munitions, spare parts, ammunition. I'd love to be that guy. That guy's making a killing, literally and figuratively, and financially, most importantly, which is to say, someone's always winning. Even when it looks like it's all bad, it's never bad. That is the theme of one of the most recent conferences. Might have been the one you were at. I think that was conference 3. And the theme of it was, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. And the comedy, I don't know if you remember that particular conference, whether it's from watching the video footage or attending, but one of the things that I pointed out, I said, hey, look, by the definition of recession, we are currently in recession. And that was a long time ago at this point, right? So it's trippy how the government has redefined the word recession and they never admit to being in a recession. They keep on saying that we might go into a recession, which is funny because by the time they admit that there ever was a recession, we're going to be out of recession. Do you realize that? They, go ahead.
It's just like focusing on what makes a difference. Because I just focus on all these things like, oh yeah, the economy, this, and this. And it's just like, how much is that incrementally helped and like what action am I going to take based upon this? It's like zero. So it's
right. Correct.
Yeah. I just think, oh, maybe I should like, short some or whatever, just because I'm concerned about the market as a whole. And it's like, why am I paying attention to this? It's like this weird, not like a drug, but like it feels like an addiction towards like being updated on the
Yes.
news when it's like not useful. I should just be focusing on making more products. That's simple.
That's brilliant. Or figuring out how the products that I think making more products is brilliant. And also another thing, depending on your time and capital, is figuring out how to extract more from the product offering that you have. How do you retarget in terms of marketing? How do you improve profit margins? How do you bundle to increase price and reduce shipping costs? There's all kinds of things that can be done to optimize, and recessions are great opportunities to make your business stronger and also to refocus on other things in life like happiness. Why am I trying to make this money? Probably for happiness. How can I shortcut it and get straight to the happiness without the money? So yeah, there's all kinds of things. But one thing I really appreciate that you mentioned, and I want everyone to earmark this in their brain as a don't do it, because we all do this. You had mentioned this addictive piece about like you're checking, like, oh, like is the real estate market recovering? You know, how NASDAQ looking? Why is the stock market still in the toilet? Oh, I'm looking at the stocks I own, they're still down. Like, for example, I know an older white couple that's reasonably well off. And, you know, this is the average American, is what they represent. You know, these are retired folks. They were middle class. They had a nice nest egg. They both worked the job for, you know, however many years you're supposed to work it. And then they retired. They got a nice little 401k pensions and all this crap, right? So their money is basically in the stock market, and they are representative of average American. It's like they are average American by all measures. And what average American is doing, especially during the Biden administration, is they're retired or they're retiring soon. So they keep looking at their 401ks go low. When in reality, it doesn't matter, because if you're already retired, you're using the money right now. So it is what it is. If you're going to retire soon, you haven't retired. There's a new presidential election cycle. We already know the market is going to change radically. Who?
Enough. Sometimes you just
Right.
need someone else to just help you and say, this is the story, this is the journey, and here's how I dealt with it. So I really appreciate it. It's the same.
Peace of the saints. And I know you probably done with your question, but one thing I'll add is that, you know, as males, especially, we tend to not be spiritual, particularly in the West and the way it's going. But spirituality and feeling is very important to many of the things that we would do and that we would be successful at. We might understand something intellectually, um, we might be able to do something physically, but to feel something is a greater power. And when you can feel something, uh, then it's in you. Like, for example, there's some old school P's, and they'll say they put the game in the girl's bones. You know, they put it in her bones, which is to say, like, their game is run deep. You know, it's penetrated the skin, the epidermis, it's in her bones, it's deep, it won't leave. And what I mean by that is you want to have whatever is right, you want that to be in your bones. And you want the truth, the good behaviors in life, the good habits, the good knowledge, best practices. You want that to wash over you constantly. And that's why just a little while ago I said, gentlemen, use condoms. Why did I say that? Like you guys don't know. I know you already know that. But I also know that you need a reminder. You hear me? Because as soon as Shorty stripped down naked and she get spread eagle, first thing you want to do is go in there raw, which is why we have to constantly, every single day, say, wear a condom for your good health and your safety. Wear a condom. We have to keep on washing ourselves over with the correct knowledge, especially in an era where there's so many lies. For example, the state of Pennsylvania is considering allowing recreational marijuana, when in reality, all of the research indicates that recreational marijuana is very detrimental to the individual and the society. It is not a civil rights issue. It does not reduce prison population, and it does destroy the development of the brain. It does impair youth, especially the younger that they start with marijuana. It does cause people to be more apathetic and increases of mental health issues and suicide. So we are certain as a medical community that marijuana, especially on a recreational level, is not a good thing, and the returns from a medical level are questionable at best. Yet it's being pushed. Why? Because it makes money, which is why I got to publish this infographic. And we know people will lie, cheat, steal, and deceive for money or affection or fear. Money, affection, fear. That's what influences humankind. When those things are involved, if I'm not dealing with someone that I know to have high levels of integrity, I don't believe. I don't believe. And what you're seeing in the West right now is a lot of unraveling of things that we took as basics. Like nothing is making sense. And that's why it's so important to wash yourself over with good knowledge on a regular basis, be around good people on a regular basis. Because we used to believe that the male and the female had to go to a different locker room because of, sexual, possible sexual situations, right? Men might be staring at women, there's some sexual attraction, even vice versa. Well, if you have persons in the society who are homosexual, then it really doesn't matter anymore, right? Because you might be next to another guy, he might be staring at you. So many of the fundamentals have broken down in the society, and so many basic truths are not true anymore. So we have to keep a keen eye to what is true and keep on bathing in that truth and living by it and living around those who also live by it.
100%. It's also being around people who don't re-echo the same worries or doubts or fears that you have, and that's another big one too. There's a super chat here. Do you want me to read it for you?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Gary S. asks, thoughts on Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, Simon Sinek, Timothy Sykes. That's a lot of
Damn,
people.
brother went all the way in, and I got a good response for that. So I think Tony Robbins is the best among them, and he predates most of the ones you named. So for that reason, he probably should be accorded the most respect. However, even he is not the pioneer, nor is he the originator of much of what he said. There is one greater than him before him, which I won't reference now. So of those named, he's the best. Who's the worst of those named? Gary Vee. He is the most fraudulent individual on the internet, the Gary Vee fellow. He's the kind of guy, like, for example, Tony Robbins, you look at him like an operative. If you dropped him off in the middle of Yemen, he can figure stuff out, like a good clandestine services agent. You can drop them off somewhere, they'll form connections, they'll be able to get people to trust them. Even if they have no money, they'll be able to figure out a way to survive. They can make things happen. They have a MacGyver toolkit. Gary Vee is one of those guys that is completely fraudulent. And if you started him from scratch with the things he quote unquote knows, I don't think he'd be able to make it. He's extraordinarily fraudulent. He's basically a guy who benefited from his parents' entrepreneurship and the foundation that they established. Simon Sinek has not originated any thought. However, he has brought some meaningful thinking to the mainstream in terms of marketing and brand. How do you explain and express a brand? How do you create brand equity and brand allegiance? He's been great at that. I tend to look at him as a Malcolm Gladwell type of figure. Malcolm Gladwell doesn't do a lot of speeches and talks, and I think Simon kind of takes that kind of knowledge, simplified knowledge, and then brings it to the mainstream. So I think he's quite clever, and he's really good at that. And then he mentioned whom else?
Graziosi, which
Never.
is a scammer.
Yeah, I never heard of him.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone, he's one of those guys that is probably giving out decent information, but like, for example, I do own real estate and I'm going to own more real estate, of course. But for me, it's a capable businessman. It's one of the least interesting forms of driving profit. Not that I'm recommending against it. We have saints who are doing great in real estate, making a killing. But when you hear the real estate guys like Grant Cardone or Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, these guys kind of seem to be speaking a contradiction in as much as they're like, look, I got so rich doing real estate. I'm so rich. I did real estate. Now I want to share my secrets with you and I want to teach all these seminars and courses. It's like, well, if real estate was so freaking profitable, like why even take out time to sell all these courses and all these books, and like they never really give you a sense of why. And I think it's because real estate is quite heavy, and I like to call it a heavy instrument. And what I mean by that is you have a lot of money and credit tied up in it, money and or credit, and you're often illiterate. That's one thing they don't mention, which is fine if you're just getting into the game as a beginner trying to establish a fortune, or if that's your thing, you like real estate, that's your game. Like Trump made a good game out of it, made a good go out of it. But I personally, I am not into it very much. I get real estate because I want to live in it. I get real estate because I want a house in this particular city, or I want to get residency or a passport from this particular political, area. But I wouldn't really want to use it from a business perspective. But that could just be a matter of preference. It is simple and fairly straightforward. I mean, simple at a level. So I think these Grant Cardones and these Robert Kiyosaki's, I think they're not being honest as much as they have much better profit margins on their educational products, and they have much more liquidity, and they're in a better business with their educational products than they are with their real estate product, or their real estate business. And so I think that's kind of what they're not letting you know. So for example, let's take what Marquette talks about, which is product-based business, and then let's take real estate. If you screw up with product-based business, what do you lose? $500 at most, $5,000 at most. If you screw up with real estate, what do you lose? Shit, you're losing hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars. You're ruining your credit, and you're impairing your ability to get and utilize more credit. That's concerning. That's a lot of downside. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that, I don't think that's the best way. I think that's one of the ways it should be a part of your portfolio. But the way they're pushing it, I don't think it's sincere. Like I don't think their why of why they're doing what they're doing is real. I think it's money. The why of why am I doing what I'm doing? Because I started off extremely rough. I had a very rough start, and I thought life was terribly unfair. And this is my effort to help people who want help, not help everyone, just to help people who want help. Because after getting all of the material things that money could buy, the ones that I wanted, I didn't go get a yacht. I never wanted a yacht. I didn't get a personal jet, private jet. I never wanted a private jet. But getting all the things that I want, I find that the things that continue to add meaning and value to my life is helping people like me. And when I say like me, I see that in people who are hustlers. Not because someone's black or because they grew up in a ghetto, but because they want something more than they have, and they feel like they deserve it. So that's what drives me, and I think that they're kind of missing that. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying that I don't find them to be inspiring, and I don't think that their route is the best or safest route. Thank you for that question. Was that from Darius?
Yes, that was from Darius. We have another super chat from Say ID. He asked, "Why are we dropping so many gems to the public? This should be for the members."
In a real way. And you know what? We have so many things that are for the members. We do want to grow our family. And if you look at the split between gyms that are public versus private, I think probably we'd say about 60% of the stuff is private. And we have all of our things, like, for example, the product based business opportunities. None of the public has access to that, and all of our meetups, our Discord, and the exclusive content. None of them have access to the Dr. Phil files. So we are going to continue pumping out content on both ends, and the private content, even the also another note, a lot of the public content, like for example, I'm doing a part two on why date rich women only. That came from, even though it's done publicly, the request for the video came from a member. And so we're definitely going to make sure that we continue serving, and we'll find new ways to serve. And at the end of the day, we got to make sure that people are driving toward their outcomes. And looking in the Discord, I'm seeing a lot of guys saying, hey, man, I'm winning over here. This is my good news. The prosperity is flowing. So I think we're doing our job. I think we're doing our job, and we can always do it better. So keep on with the suggestions. And I appreciate the compliment. Indeed, we do have some gems going down today.
I just want to add that in-person conferences or the meetups were really like where the gems, super gems, diamonds really come from. I really enjoyed all of those. So those are definitely behind a paywall. They're going to be there in person.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? For me, of all the things I could do, like I was just looking at Floyd Mayweather. Someone had sent me a clip, and as soon as I looked at the clip, I was like, "Oh, he's in Monaco. I know exactly where he's at right now. I know what street he's at. I know what buildings to the left and the right. I know what cafe he just left. But I know exactly where this guy is right now." Now Monaco's dope. I'll probably never go back. Hopefully, God willing, I don't want to go back. I've been there a ton of times, but those are the kind of things that people are like, "Oh, if I could just get to Monaco, I'll be happy. I'll have fun. It'll be great. It'll be perfect." But the feeling people think they're going to get when they go to Monaco or Dubai or wherever the hell they think is a fantasy land, that is the feeling that I get every single time the men are together for our conferences and for our in person events, because there's a huge energy there. And you're right, Mitchell, that is where the greatest of values comes. And those are the places that as we develop, we're going to have a lot more of these things that are happening like on an annual and traditional basis. So I'm excited. The one that we have scheduled, like, and I always tell you guys when I do conferences, I'm like, hey, I'm not guaranteeing I'm doing this again. We don't have any conference scheduled. I don't know when we've done the last one. It feels like it's been like over a year. But we do have the men's trip 2024, first week of March. I'll be sending out more details when I get time, but that's going to be dope. And I want to do annually at least two of those trips. Like one, a civil one. It's men. We're gonna get suited up. We're gonna be business minded. We're gonna be introspective. It's gonna be all about us as men. That's gonna be the one that's coming up. Then I want to do a second one, which is basically we are terrorizing every bad chick on in that country. Whatever bad chick is in that country, we want her, we need her, we going yay yay. And it's just gonna be like basically just wilding out, having a good time. It's gonna be basically Animal House abroad. Did you ever see Animal House?
I have, yeah.
There you go. Minus the booze. Minus the booze. At least for me. I can't speak for anybody else.
Do any of the saints in the Discord have any questions? We're done with the ones on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's on Cash App or not. I'm just trying to make sure you haven't seen it here.
No, I appreciate that. 'Cause I just turned on my defroster accidentally.
If no one has any questions,
Fantastic.
person questions, and
Yeah.
people are just lacking.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. And the neat thing too is another thing for the members, and obviously only the members have been able to come on, ask their questions, their voice, as they please. So we're here to serve, and we've served.
Okay, you have a question. It's not a question per se. It's more of a story to tell.
Okay, go ahead.
So yesterday, I had a meeting with you guys, and the reason for that was because of some issues that she was dealing with. What I found crazy right now was talking about I put out the mention of the relationship she said. And you know, she like, I was like, on a bitch one. Nah. He just ghosted me. But she been dealing with some shit. She don't want to talk to me. And she been into a whole rabbit hole of delusion and like, I don't know, weird shit that I have no idea anywhere. I have no idea. I'm not even about it. He just fucking was crazy. Really is crazy. So, long story short, I put up my phone. I go through the chats and I start to deep on every single thing that she did. Day back in. So she is supposed to send me a six. You tried to say, he said, you're giving me 95 for your money. But there was 5% stood out, and I believe that it's out of proportion to the movie that all I received the name. It's when I went and said that we made it the wrong time. Honestly, she said, I'm being too big for you about where she is. I don't know how about you feature of. So it's just a story I decided to share with you because I learned a lot that people
Well, you know what? You got to break apart delusional and crazy because they're actually they can be the same thing, but they actually are different things. You know, a chick can be delusional but not crazy, and a chick can be delusional and crazy. And sadly, you're dealing with a crazy one. It won't be your last. I mean, I just recently was dealing with one that's actually crazy. And the weird part about it is she's also very intelligent. So it adds an element. It's really strange to deal with her because she says a lot of things that are insightful and meaningful, but maybe 80, 89 separate text messages, like DMs a day, and they're all lengthy. And it's because her neuroticism causes her to just be so intense. And if you don't respond on time, she'll carry on the conversation by herself, independent of you. Like basically just going on with what she thought you would have replied and just keeping the conversation going, and gets madder and madder the more you don't reply. So if you read the conversation from the morning to the evening, she's gotten progressively angry. Now, you couldn't tell this girl that she's crazy, which often is a condition of being crazy, just like a stupid person doesn't know that they're stupid. And the problem with her is that she's beautiful. And there's a graphic that I showed you guys in the past where it says only 10% of women are not dateable for males. And they're not dateable, meaning that they're both unattractive and they have mental issues. Mental issues could be crazy. It could be like low IQ, could be Down syndrome, could be all kinds of things. But they have to be unattractive and have mental issues. Because if they're attractive and they have mental issues, sadly, we will still deal with them. And that's our problem. You know, and like the best of us can say, all right, you know, shorty, crazy as hell, you know, I'm gonna put her ass on ice and not mess with her. And even every now and then, you know, they catch me slipping. I'm like, God damn, she fine as hell. Let me just go ahead, max her out, and then ghost her. And you know, it just sometimes it doesn't work like that because she's so fine. You done maxed her out, and then you ghosted her, and then a couple of days later, you're like, let me max her out again. And next thing you know, that's a relationship. That's consistency. It's sad, man. Right, exactly. Exactly. We're all doing the same things, and that's why it's critical for us to it's I'm sorry, my car is like telling me all these complex ass things. But we're all dealing with the same things, and that's why it's critical for us to fellowship like this so that we can utilize best practices because we know what the best practices are. We're just not doing them. And a part of it is because we don't have the force of character within ourselves. Sometimes we succumb to our desires, or we just don't have the reinforcement, or we don't know that there's other men out there doing it the right way. Like I always love when I'm on IG or I'm on a YouTube short and I see some super thick thought trying to like get attention from guys, and I look in the comments and cats are like, yeah, you're a thirst trap, get out of here, we don't respect you. I love it. I love to see that. You hear me? I love it. And you know what I do every time I see these chicks thirst trapping on YouTube and Instagram? I flag their post because I don't want social media to become pornography. You feel me? And that's essentially what they're doing is they're turning it into pornography. Yeah, in a real way. Hit me.
Isaiah, you floor is yours. My and Nick. Oh my bad.
Look, man. Hey, don't try to get us killed, bro. I see the workout you do. Tell me what it is. Let's figure out if it's safe. Okay, I think that I know what you're talking about, but yeah, if you hit us with like a video or something, we can get it going. Honestly, I look at the bar work that you do, man. I'll be watching it and just trying to tell myself not to try it because I also see people on TikTok and these platforms trying to do what you're doing, and you see them slip off that bar, it never goes well.
Yeah, it takes a lot of practice.
A lot of and tremendous strength. That part. It'd be funny
What
as
do you
hell,
start
man.
running them up for?
But so you're going to I think you already created a document, right, with assassin exercises?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you got it in there, and we should review that one at All Saints.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, and at some point we need to whittle this down because we I guess we should have a number of exercises that are mandatory and then some other ones that are optional, in as much as we should have a core of mandatory exercises that address every single muscle group in the human body, right? So that you like, between your 7 days, you can get every group. And then we should have another set of exercises that are recommended by the guys who are like, hey, this is some good stuff if you want to double down on fill in the blank muscle group.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If you guys have any exercise recommendations, just send it to me,
Yeah.
and then I'll just add it to the workout.
Yeah. And so we want to highlight like maybe like 10 of them that are or that are mandatory that every saint around the world does and knows and is proficient at, because our advantage over every other group is that we are the apple of this philosophy space, this way of life space. And what I mean by that is, there's simplicity and clarity. And you could find a saint in the Philippines, you can find a saint in Italy, you can find a saint in Detroit, and they all know what our basic exercise routine is. They all have the same level of militance. They all know how to be courteous but not friendly to strangers, and everything is consistent. And a part of the ability of us to master these things is that we don't have too many freaking things to master, right? Like there's a clear, definable set of what we stand for. My set up all time, but it's been a pleasure to have this time of fellowship with you all. You said a chick who's delusional and a chick who's what? Delusion. You are probably crazy. But most human beings, male and female, are delusional, which is to say they look and don't really see what is there. And a part of the human ego to protect our psyche sometimes requires delusion, which is to say, have you ever seen a woman out in the public and she's wearing short shorts and maybe her shirt is like not a full shirt? She's exposing some midriff, but she's like overweight and probably not attractive to 98% of the men who are looking at her. Yet she's still in the shorts, isn't she? And at some level in her mind, she believes that she looks good and she's attractive. She's delusional. Um, Women, when they ask, how do I look in this dress? If a man were to say, you look fat, they'd be angry. Why? Because they're delusional. It does not line up with their self view. What they said was, how do I look? What they meant was, tell me how good I look. All human beings have a level of delusion. Sometimes it's helpful, but most times it isn't. Men are also delusional. Do you know how many men, like, for example, this is sad comedy. This guy's not crazy, he's delusional. I saw this night before last. It was a documentary on a love scam. There's a black guy, 70 years old. He's being scammed online by a woman in Eastern Europe who claims to be 40 years old. She also wasn't a real person, it was really a Nigerian scammer, but they were pretending to be a woman in Eastern Europe. They were using the photographs of a German woman, a Western European, and they were basically scamming this guy. Now, when the people were interviewing this 70-year-old black man and saying, hey, bro, like, why did you believe any of this? His delusion was, well, why can't I have a 40-year-old woman? I'm sure there's some 40-year-old woman that's attracted to me. Well, yeah, probably, but probably not a 40-year-old woman who who's this attractive. Probably not a 40-year-old woman who lives in Eastern Europe randomly messaged you on Facebook and picked you out of the hat. Like, if she's going to pick someone out of the hat, why would she pick a 70-year-old guy? Why would she pick a black guy? Why would she pick a guy in poverty? Like, there's so many whys, and his caused him, and we're to do that is see what we want. That's why the concept of mask fishing exists. What's a mask fish? It's when someone's wearing a COVID mask and you look at them, you're like, oh, this person's probably attractive. Then they take off the mask, you're like, hell nah. And the reality is, they didn't become a different person. It's just that you were looking at these limited number of features and you were imagining that the other features were good because you want them to be good. That is what the basis of delusion is. And we all have a level of it. But at the point which you become crazy is when you have high levels of delusion or you have other peculiarities or infirmities in your mind.
Well, thank you. Thank you for this.
Yes, sir. Peace to the saints. I'm Outro.
Peace to the saints.